Hi, my name is John Sato, and I serve the Free Methodist Church in Southern California. The bishops have called us to prayer and fasting for this month. This week's theme is on the next generation. It's fitting that the bishops gave me, the oldest, most mature, and distinguished superintendent, the topic of next generation, because I clearly have the most to say. What comes to mind when you hear the words next generation? For some, it's our youth and children's ministry programs. For others, it's those you're mentoring and discipling. The older I get, the more relative that term next generation gets. Children's ministry typically becomes anyone that's younger than I am. I remember growing up and looking at teachers and pastors and thinking, they look so old. And now I look at young adults in their 20s and 30s and think, they all look so young. Part of me is now having a midlife crisis, and I'll save my trauma for my therapist. But the truth is, next generation seems a bit relative, but that doesn't diminish its importance. Take a moment to reflect right now. What does the Lord, or who does the Lord bring to mind when you hear the words next generation? Part of our system is an appointment system. This isn't a polity discussion, but it's a system that reminds us that while our experiences are 100% of our stories, we serve a larger narrative, which is God's story. It's humbling to realize that no matter our impact as leaders, the world moves on. Conferences move on. Churches move on. Superintendents serve terms. It feels somewhat odd to know you have an expiration date as a leader, but it's also humbling. It reminds me that whether I'm doing a great job or a terrible one, and for me it's typically the latter, my story is only a part of the larger narrative, which is God's story. Our focus as the church should have always been on the next generation, because we serve God's story and not our own. A story that is bigger, wider, longer, and deeper than our singular experiences will ever be able to comprehend. So instead of getting through doors and closing them, might we be a church that props them open? Or instead of resisting new opportunities because we didn't have them, might we be a church that fights to create them? In Matthew, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Jesus clearly values the next generation. He instructs his disciples to let the next generation come to him, and even further, that the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Today, ask the Lord to reveal to you who he wants you to invest in your next. Then reach out to that person. May we be the church that actively seeks and nurtures the next generation for the sake of the Lord's story.